Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more details videos. Becoming Caitlin Clark, the unknown origin story of a modern basketball superstar. Introduction. When it was over, the final moments of Caitlin Clark's 2024 WNBA season, the most impactful rookie campaign anyone could ever remember, in ways both measurable by the present and exciting for the future. Caitlin Clark left the Indiana Fever's visiting locker room at Mohegan Sun Arena, where Indiana had just been eliminated from the WNBA playoffs by Alyssa Thomas and the home team, and walked confidently through the industrial white brick corridor leading to the post-game press conference with assembled media. Clark sat at a podium, as she had so many times before, and reflected on all she had done. She did so not in a dedicated media room. The WNBA, unlike its older, more established brother league, the NBA, often plays in arenas without that accoutrement, one of the many ways the league and really, women's basketball itself has been forced to right-size in real time during Caitlin Clark's rise. The game itself, of course, was a sellout, customary and expected now. She'd maxed out Mohegan Sun each of the 4 times she played there. 8,910 fans. She'd sold out all but 4 of her home dates back in Indiana, at Bankers Life Fieldhouse, and even her 4 games, which fell just shy of a sellout, exceeded 15,000 fans apiece. To put that in perspective, her smallest crowd of the 2024 season, May 30th against the Seattle Storm, drew 15,022 fans. It was also larger than any crowd who went to see the Indiana Fever prior to Clark's arrival since September 18, 2016. When all-time great Tamika Catchings played in her final regular season game for Indiana, with playoff seeding on the line. So much time, energy, and angst in 2024 revolved around debating precisely why Caitlin Clark reverberated within American culture, elevating the sport of women's basketball like nothing that had come before her. Easy, simple answers focused on elements of her singularity. Resentment from many who have spent lifetimes working to build the sport, only to be cut out of a present-centric view of it, also spilled into view. But these polls do not represent how the overwhelming majority of figures within the game, both trailblazers and the current and future stars who will lead us into the next generations who get to build on Clark's rise, experience the past and present, or view what's ahead. There is a symbiotic relationship within necessary building that took place over the previous century, creating the conditions for Clark's supernova emergence onto the world stage. And just as important, Clark herself, while a product of these efforts, found everywhere, but so often born in Iowa, rose to the challenge of taking the baton, just as women's basketball's perfect storm formed around her career. There is no Caitlin Clark without women pioneers playing basketball as soon as the game itself was created by James A. Naismith in the 1890s. There is no Caitlin Clark without Iowa, unlike many other states early in the 20th century, moving to protect the game itself for women from those who would destroy opportunities for women in the name of protecting them. There is no Caitlin Clark without a generation of Iowa girls playing the game in the first 2 decades of the 20th century, excelling while reveling in the support of their communities. There is no Caitlin Clark without the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union making the brave decision to protect varsity basketball. Just as significant, there is no Caitlin Clark without that game's rules themselves, the 6-on-6 game, which has come to shape the modern offense and prizes the skills that separate Clark from even the greatest who came before her, not to mention the critical voices who molded her into the player she is. There is no Caitlin Clark without the 1962 Van Horn Hornets, who redefined success on the court, paving the way for a faster-paced, perimeter-oriented game. There is no Caitlin Clark without Van Horn itself, which undertook to show Iowa, in a way that built on decades of elevating girls who succeeded in women and presaged the mania to come, how to properly fate a women's basketball breakthrough. There is no Caitlin Clark without Molly Bolin, whose rise came through the Iowa girls system, which left no small-town star without a chance to prove her greatness, whose star power was limitless as her shooting range, but whose efforts to build the WNBA pathway Clark and those who follow can take as a given led to incredible professional and personal costs. There is no Caitlin Clark without Lark Birdsong, planting a stake in the ground for the University of Iowa's women's basketball program, and Christine Grant funding it at a level equal to other women's sports, itself a battleground. There is no Caitlin Clark without Vivian Stringer, whose vision of a sold-out Carver Hawkeye Arena to support an Iowa team filled with stars from around the country created the very canvas Clark drew on. Or Jolette Law, imported from South Carolina to run Stringer's team as its point guard and engine, now shaping the roster of Dawn Staley's Gamecocks back in her home state, one of the endless Iowa diaspora defining the women's game today. There's no Caitlin Clark without the visionary basketball minds and supporters of women, Lisa Bludder and Jan Jensen, themselves products of the 6-on-6 game, taking the twin pillars of elite post play and perimeter magic and molding an offense-first attack that draws eyeballs in the millions. The excitement is overwhelming as when the game itself thrilled packed gymnasiums all over small towns in Iowa. Jensen's grandmother, Dorcas Anderson, helped create that excitement over a century ago, just as Jensen is building on what Clark herself created as the leader of the Hawkeye program. None of what Caitlin Clark, a preternatural talent at not only the game of basketball itself, but at serving as a public avatar for the hopes, dreams, love, and hate of a passionate group of fans living through tumultuous American times, all as she only recently exited her teenage years, would be possible without Clark herself. And none of it happens without the elements of every single predecessor you'll meet in this book, on and off the court, for over a century preceding Clark's arrival on the scene. Every single one of these trailblazers, including Clark herself, have one thing in common: for all the disparate ways they altered the course of women's basketball for, and often with, one another. Their love of the game is only fully understood within the larger context of what it means to engage in the work. The joy, the devastation of loss and elation of victories large and small with the people they love. It is the given for boys and men, always has been, turning women's basketball into that given, for the fully realized life that comes with such progress, is what resonates most deeply with Caitlin Clark, with all who helped produce her, and with the countless girls and women who will benefit from her ascension. That is what was on Caitlin Clark's mind, what was found inscribed on her heart, when she was asked what her first professional season